Today we're going to talk about forced perspective. So before you watch this video on how to do the assignment, make sure you checked out the blog that I posted on our digital photography website on the composition page. It's below the videos. It says forced perspective. Check that out first. Then come back and let's talk about this assignment. All right. So as you saw the blog, forced perspective is when you take a picture where you've got two things of varying sizes and you're going to kind of flip the script, so to speak, and make something that's small look big or something really big look really small, right? And you're doing that by how you place them in your frame. So you're going to need, for this assignment, your camera. If you have the Kodak, you're going to need the 12 to 45 millimeter lens. That's the smaller lens. If you have the Canon, you've got the one lens, so you're going to use the lens you usually use. You're going to set your lens for a focal length that's as low as you can get. For mine, that's 17. For the Kodaks, it's going to be 12. For the other Canons, I can't remember exactly what it is, but it's your lowest one. The reason we do that is it gives us a wider view, or a wider angle view. So if you take a look at this graphic right here, you'll see that the smaller the focal length or the shorter the focal length, the wider that kind of cone of color. And as it gets longer and longer and it kind of turns into that zoom lens, you get narrower and narrower focus. So when you look at that and what does it do to a picture, let's take a look at this. Now you have this huge open wide scene when you take it with a short focal length, and then as you go to a longer and longer focal length, you'll see that it zooms in and gets narrower and narrower and narrower till all you see is the barn. So why do we care for this assignment? Because we're going to be shooting in a really small aperture, or rather large aperture number, small aperture opening, that's going to give us not a lot of light. The wide angle gives us a little more light for our shooting, all right? It also allows us has a wider range of what's in our viewfinder. Now, the aperture becomes really important when we're doing this kind of photography because you need a really deep depth of field. And to get that deep depth of field, that huge kind of section of everything that's in focus, right? We want a lot of stuff in focus because we're going to put something close to the lens and something far away from the lens. We want both of those things to be in focus. And to do that, we need that high number on our aperture, right? Now, the high number on the aperture means that you're going to have less light. So that means that you need to be somewhere where you have a lot of really great light, hence why I'm outdoors. It does not need to be a sunny day. A gray day is actually great because it gives you a little more uniform kind of lighting for your images. But sunny day is fine as well. Just make sure you have a lot of light. Now, because you're going to have that really high number on your f-stop, it means you have to compensate in some other ways. Your ISO should be higher because you want to have it be a little more sensitive of a sensor. I set mine for 800 for this shooting. You're also going to need to think about that shutter speed. It's going to have to be a slower shutter speed. And because of that slower shutter speed, you need to be able to balance your camera better. So whether you use a tripod or a table or a chair or even just kind of sitting down or being down on the ground so that you get a solid base for your pictures, that's going to be better off. All right, now the other things you need to think about when you're doing this is depth of field can be affected by where you place things in the frame. The closer something is to the actual lens, it's going to make a shallower depth of field. So you do need to, if you're shooting something small and you want to make it look big, you're going to have it fairly close to your lens, but you don't want it so close that you're going to lose the depth of field of the thing that you're trying to shoot that's going to be smaller. So keep that in mind, that you want to have a decent distance. In this example, you can see that in practice. Here I've got my dog Sunny about 7 or 8 feet from the lens, and you can see that Kinsey, my daughter, in the background is mostly in focus. Now, if I take Sunny and I move her closer to the camera, she gives me wicked side eye because she hates the camera, but then also Kinsey in the background is not as much in focus. I've lost some of that depth of field. Camera stayed the same, just moved the dog closer, and because of that closer position, I've lost depth of field. Now, the other thing you want to think about is that we as human beings set an innate kind of value or like size to human beings. And so putting a human being in forced perspective is a great way to really immediately get that effect of like something's off there. So grab people in your house, whoever it wanted to be. And for my pictures, I grabbed my daughters. They were totally psyched to help me out. So let's take a look at what it looks like when you take these forced perspective pictures. All right, let's start by looking at my settings. I have my shutter speed set at 1/30th. I have my f-stop at f25, and then I have my ISO at 800. So here I am getting all set up for the shot. You can see that, once again, because I'm using that slightly slower shutter speed, 1/30th isn't super slow, but it's a little bit slow. I'm sitting down, I'm leaning up against the table, I'm kind of balanced myself. You can see that I've got my older daughter Zoe, who's in the foreground. She's about maybe 6 feet away from me, and then Kenzie's way further back and up on the hill. And that serves two purposes. One, the distance makes her look smaller, but then putting her up on the hill means she's higher up in the frame. So here you can see in that final shot that she actually looks like she's standing in Zoe's hands and being crushed between. So that's what we got from that shot. Now, plan to take a little bit of time to do this. This is not easy to do. This is a footage from earlier in the day where we were trying to get the dog to help us out. As you can see, it was not the most successful experience. She kept running away. She hated the camera. It was a bit of a mess. And so this is the one shot I got from that. It's actually not too bad, but it wasn't quite what I was looking for. So you can see that it takes a little bit of doing. Have patience with your models. Make sure you communicate effectively. All right. So once you're done and you've got that picture, you're like, yep, that's going to work. You're going to take the picture that you think is perfect. And if actually, if you end up with more than one, you can upload a couple to the assignment for this that shows that you figured out how to get this forced perspective going. This is a challenging thing to do. So if you run into problems, please let me know. Ask questions, support each other. We can use the Teams classroom for this. All right. So best of luck and have fun.